Mother, mother, mother. Everybody thinks we're wrong. Mother, who are they to judge us? Mother, mother, simply cause we wear our hair long. Mother, mother, ooh. Just getting back, but you knew I would. War is hell. When will it end? When will people start getting together again? Are things really getting better? Like the newspaper said. What else is new, my friend? Besides what I read, can't find no work, can't find no job, my friend. Money is tighter than it's ever been. Say, man, I just don't understand what's going on across this land. Oh, what's happening, brother? Yeah,
what's your name?
What's happening? What's happening, brother? Are they still getting down where we used to go and dance? Will our ball club win the pennant? Do you think they have a chance? And tell me, friend, how in the world have you been? Tell me what's out, and I wanna know what's in. What's the deal, man? What's happening? What's happening, brother? What's happening? What's happening, brother? What's happening, my man? Woo! What's happening, brother? Say it, man. Woo! What's happening, brother? What's been shaking up and down the line? I wanna know 'cause I'm slightly behind the time. Everybody thinks we're wrong. Mother, who are they to judge us? Mother, mother, simply call us sweet, wear our hair long. Mother, mother, ooh.